So let's do an example of three-point lighting. This scene can represent some sort of product shot, and three-point lighting would be a great way to light something like that. You are able to see your subject. You'll be able to get the basic outline and shape of your object, but still be able to retain some sort of mood for the scene. Three-point lighting will be using three main lights. The first one will be your key light. Your key light will be your main light. This light will have shadows on it. And then the other ones will be supporting lights. We'll have a fill light, which we won't have shadows on. And that one will be to lighten up the areas that the key light does not hit. This kind of represents bounce lighting, light that will be bouncing off this ground plane and the rest of the environment onto your subject. And then the last one will be an edge light. And the edge light is there to make your subject pop. So you can see a definite shape of your subject. And what it usually does is highlight just part of some of the edges on your subject. And it really just helps it pop from the background and helps retain the shape of your subject so you're able to see exactly what your subject is. So let's go ahead and create our first light. I will create a spotlight. And you can see we have our spotlight in our scene. And let's go into our top view and look through the selected spotlight. And you can see that we cannot see any feedback for our lights. So let's come in and change our settings in our viewport so we can see our lights. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to switch this to viewport 2 just to get better feedback as to what is going on with our lights. So let's open up the attribute editor for our light and make some changes. So I'm adjusting the penumbra. And I will add a little drop off. Let's do a little render so we can see what's going on. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's turn our shadows on. Come down to ray trace shadows. Let's do another render. I'll soften these up a little bit. Okay, there we go. So we have some shadows and we have our light. I'm actually going to come in and put the decay rate on our light. Let's go to quadratic and we'll see how this looks. And we will need to adjust this intensity. So let's just see. Okay, we see nothing at all. So let's bring this up to 100. And it's way too low. Let's go 300. Okay, then we've got to bring this up a bit more. Okay, that's pretty good. You know what? I'll bring it up to 1,000. Okay, great. I like that. That looks nice. If we wanted to, we can even add a little bit of color to this. Maybe if we want to go, a very slight yellow. Okay, there we go. Let's leave it like this for now. So this is our main light. Let's pop this attribute editor open again. And we have our decay rate on there. We're emitting diffuse, which is all of the color that we're seeing in our light. If we shut diffuse off, we won't see any light. And we're emitting a specular also. Specular highlight is going to be those highlights that you see in a shiny material. So actually, I will put fongs on our two subjects right here. Favorite, just throw a fong on there. going to leave it at the default gray color, just so we can see the effect. Whoops, wrong viewport. There we go. So at least we have some sense of what kind of effect our lights are having on our subject in regards to the speculars. And I am going to actually take the reflection down. Okay, good. So we have no reflection, and we're getting our specular highlights. And let's move on with the fill light. Now, the fill light is going to simulate a bounce light and lighten up this area over here, which is being darkened by the shadows and the lack of light. So you can see it's very dark in these regions right here. So we're going to have a fill light kind of come in from underneath and the side and lighten up this area. Not too much. We just want to be able to see a little bit of these shapes, but not look like it's actually being illuminated. We just want it to look like there's some sort of bounce light going on. So let's create a new spotlight. Let's say look through selected. And we can see this is our configuration. We know our key light is coming from that direction. So let's kind of do the opposite. Okay, let's open up the attribute editor and let's bring this intensity down to say 0.4 and let's do a render. And we're in the wrong viewport. Okay, here we go. I'm going to turn this intensity down to 0 and let's do a render so we can see this is where we started with, and let's bring this back up to 0.4 so we can do a comparison. Now you can see we're getting some illumination over here, but we're also getting these specular highlights, which looks like there's another light hitting our subject. So if we take this specular highlight off, it'll look more like a bounce light. So that's working pretty good. We can come in and change the color of our light, add a little bit of blue. Keep it subtle. Even maybe try bringing this up to 0.5. Okay, there. So now it looks like we have some sort of bounce going on. Not adding too much light. We can probably bring that back down to 0.4. And I may even move the light around a little bit. Let's see what this looks like. Okay. I do not have any shadows on this light. It is not an actual light. It's supposed to represent bounce lighting. Also, because we're coming from the bottom of this of these shapes, if we had the shadows on, it would hit the bottom of this plane and would not move any further. Without shadows, the light is able to penetrate. It's able to go through this ground plane and hit the subjects. Tweak the light around a little bit. Okay, that's pretty good. I like that. So now let's go through and create an edge light. So let's create a new spotlight. And let's go through the selected. And let's go around to the back. This is where we're going to put our edge light. And you can see we're starting to hit that edge. So let's open up our render view. And you can see we want to try to get this edge illuminated a little bit over here. Really kind of make this area pop. And you can see we're starting to get that over here. And that's kind of really nice. Let's do a render. And let's go into our attribute editor. Let's take the specular off. Let's adjust this a little bit. Actually, you know what? Let's go back the way we had it before, and we'll turn the specular on. Because we're coming from behind, I think this is working out well. We're getting the effect that we want with the specular turned on for this edge light. We tried turning this down. Okay, that looks pretty nice. We can come back and make adjustments to our key light. And we can make adjustments to the shadow. If the shadows are looking too dark, we can come in and change the shadow color. So let's bring this down a little bit. I'm sorry, we're in the wrong section. I have my Spotlight 3 selected, and I need my Spotlight 1. So let's go to the outliner, and you can see we have Spotlight 1, 2, and 3. This is why it's good to name things, just so you know exactly which spotlight you're working with. So you can call this one light, key light, fill light, edge light. All right, there we go. So now I have my key light selected. Let's go to the attribute editor. Now let's change our shadow color. And there we go. That might be a little too light. So let's darken it up a little bit. Actually, let's go in here and let's add some color. Kind of like what we did with our fill light. Add a little bit of blue in there. And because our fill light is blue, adding a little bit to the shadow color can help place it into the same environment. Can even lighten that up a little bit. And let's go in and blur our shadows a little more. So we'll turn that up. And the shadows are a little too light. Let's darken them up a bit. And maybe we can blur them a little more. Go to 3. It's looking pretty good. So this is a way that you can use 3 lights to light a subject like this. So we used various things like shadows on the key light. We actually used the decay rate, the penumbra, the drop off. Pretty much used most of the settings in our key light. And then in the fill light, we made sure we had no shadows. We turned the specular off. And the edge light, again, no shadows, but we left the specular on to get this, pick up this little highlight right on the edge of our image. So play around with your lighting and try to keep these things in mind when you're lighting any kind of subject, whether it's an environment or a single subject, and make sure that you're able to see what your subject is, but still be able to create some sort of mood with your lighting as well. Before we end this video, I just want to go over the changes that we made and the steps that we went through to create this 3-point lighting scene. This is the first step, and it is the creation of our key light with our shadows. And then we added the fill light with a little bit of color. Then we added the edge light. And then our final step was to come in and adjust the key light shadows. So just remember, there's no concrete rules necessarily in lighting. You just want to make sure that you just keep the basic principles in mind when you're lighting your subjects. The different options and attributes that you're going to use on your lights may differ from scene to scene, and it all depends on the looks that you're trying to achieve with it.